All right, so I'm going to quickly show you how to make this other style rocket. So I'll leave that one kind of there in the background so we can look at it. Um, so we're going to start with making this nose cone, this red and blue part. So I'm going to grab a cone and I'm going to make it 40 by 40. I'm just going to type it in. 40 by 40 and 40. So all three measurements are 40. And I'm gonna make it blue like in the other one, but you can do whatever colors you want. And I'm gonna duplicate it. And then this one I'm gonna make a little bit smaller. So these bottom measurements are gonna be 26 by 26. And then we want it to be nice and tall. Go right about in there. Sure, 78. I'm gonna make it red. So I can kind of get it in there close, but the easiest way to make it look nice and even is to use that align tool again. So I'm going to align it. This one is already grayed out because I already had it aligned that way, but choosing these two ones on the center, that'll get it aligned there, and they were both already flat, so that looks good. So I'm going to group them together. You might notice that in my other one, even though they're grouped, they're different colors. So something that you can do, if you click that solid color that you have there, you can choose multicolor and it'll keep those different colors even when they're grouped. So these are still one piece, but they are two different colors now, which is kind of handy if you want things to stick together, but leave those colors that you chose. So next we'll make that body. So I'm gonna grab a cylinder and I'm gonna make it 40 by 40. So it's same size as that cone. And I'm gonna make it like 90-ish, 94, sure, tall. And I'm gonna do gray. All right, so next we want to move these cones on top of our cylinders. You could just move it up and try and get it close, but a new thing that I'm going to show you is how you can add a new work plane. So first I'm going to Control C or copy, or you can hit this little button up here, copy. So I've copied that cone, and I'm going to grab a work plane. And you can see that my cursor, it goes on any of these, like you could do a work plane on any of these cylinder sides, but I want to add a work plane on top of my cylinder. So when I click that, it adds this new work plane. So kind of like the same thing we had on the bottom that was blue, but we added a new one. So now when I do paste, it pasted my nose cone right on top there because that's where that new work plane is. And then all that I got to do is align them again. And that looks good. So I can click work plane and choose my bottom one. And it's all kind of back to normal again. So I don't need these other cones anymore. I'm going to delete them. So there, oh, I didn't group it yet. So let's group it all. There we go. And I'm going to move it to the back. So next we have our fins. So I'm going to grab a cylinder and I'm going to stretch it out so that it is, this measurement's going to be 76 by 35. Those are those, nope, can't see. 76 by 35, so kind of a long, skinny cylinder. And I'm going to grab a box and stretch that out a ways. It doesn't really matter, but I want to kind of have it cut in half, as close as you can get to cutting in half on that cylinder. And then I'm going to copy and paste this cylinder again, but I'm going to make it a hole and use that to make that roundish shape. And you can kind of choose what you want it to look like. I'm going to go like that. So now when I group these together, there is a fin. And I'm going to make it a little thinner because that looks a little funky. I'm going to go down to like 5-ish. There we go. So there's one fin. And depending on how you have that box and second cylinder copy on there, it's going to change what this looks like. So if you don't like it, you can ungroup and maybe you want to move this down more and do something like that. And you can regroup it and see what it looks like. So you can play with it. I'm going to go back up a little bit though. So whatever you kind of prefer for that. So I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to use the mirror tool. So I can mirror it a couple of different ways. And if you hover over these arrows, it shows you how it mirrors it. So I want to do this one so that now they are mirrored that vertical direction. And I'm going to separate them out a little bit. I didn't keep it aligned. Well, maybe they are still good. So, and the distance between them is kind of up to you if you want it farther or closer. You don't want it wider than how far the cylinder is, but I'm going to go like that, and I'm going to group these together. So right now they're obviously not the right direction, so I need to rotate them 90 degrees. And I'm going to slide them back to my rocket. And again, it would be really hard to get it like perfectly centered. So I'm going to select everything and use my align tool and get them in there. So depending, you can choose how low you want your little fins on here too. You probably don't want to go too low because that's going to look funny. I'm going to try like that. So there's 2 of my fins. I'm going to duplicate it. So it's actually duplicated right on top. And I'm going to rotate that new one, that 90 degrees again. And there are my 4 fins. So I'm going to group everything together. And if I push just the D button, it'll bring it all back up to the surface of my work plane. And we're getting pretty close. So actually, I'm on my fins. I'm going to make them not be super pointy. I'm going to cut away a little bit. So I'm just grabbing out a box and just making it pretty thin. We'll go 5. And what this will do is give it a nice flat base for the rocket to sit on. All right, last thing is adding those 3 windows. So this is pretty simple compared to that first rocket design. I'm just going to grab a sphere. Let's drag it up and we can go back. And you're just going to position them to look kind of like windows. So that looks like a good height. So I'm going to duplicate it and drag it down. So that way they're still in a line with each other. And I can duplicate it again. And there's my third one. So very simple. Last thing you're going to do is add your name somewhere, just so that I know that that's your rocket that you made. So I'm going to grab my text. I'm going to go fly. Oops. Oh, I am all rotated funny. And then you can position it wherever you want it to be, and it might have to be kind of small, and that's okay, as long as I can read it in your screenshot. Yeah, so maybe that'll work. If you want to get it nice right on those fins, you can do that, or make it cut into it, whatever you want. But then you'll take a little screenshot of your rocket there.